She's Mailet,
That's AnnMarie,
and this is the new normal.
and we're discussing the after effects of cancer.
I hear sometimes people post things like, oh my gosh, I'm cancer free. And I look at that term and I always think it's really not about the cancer inside of you. That's like a mindset to me, because there's moments that I know that like I'm in this world. I do a lot of advocating and, I do lots with I had cancer. There's moments in my day or my week where I feel free of it. Maybe I'm cooking dinner or hanging out with friends or just like watching a movie with the kids. And that is an incredible feeling, because the reality is it hasn't really gone away in 9 years. I don't mean the cancer hasn't left my body. I just mean the after effects of it.
I completely agree. My goodness. I was, for the longest time, every cancerversary, it's like, okay, here's number one. Yes, number two. Okay, great. I'm getting closer and closer to that number 5. And when I reached number 5, I do have to say that every year it got a little bit easier to understand that, okay, this cough is not necessarily cancer. This, whatever I'm feeling here, is not cancer. And that's like this emotional piece that kept going on and on and on until I hit that 5-year mark, where I was like, whew, okay. My doctor says now that he's like, that's it. You're good. You're done. I want to say he might have said you're cancer free. Well, I like cancer free because I don't like to, even if there is anything coursing through my body, I like to think and put that energy
You try
into,
to manifest it.
Exactly.
We are so different, because as I got farther along, I got more nervous.
Oh.
Because, I went from being watched every 6 months to every year to every, whatever. And that scared me. Like, I was like, who's watching out for me? And the reality is, with breast cancer, 1 in 3 become metastatic. 30%. I know 70% are not. I totally get that. But that 30% just felt like it was like in my head. And I got more fearful as I went on. It really did like shake me a little bit. And I think that's something that they just don't warn us about, is you are in this for the long haul. Whether you are 5 years out or 10 years out, you still have to be checked. You still go to some doctor's appointments, and you're still being in tune to your body in some way to, listen to those cues if something does happen. You don't think about it when you're first diagnosed until much later on.
Oh yeah, no. Well, later on, meaning like still like
I don't
next
know,
year.
because I'm still in it.
Yeah, no, it's like even like 10 years in, I'm still constantly checking my breast, because
Sure.
I found my own cancer, so I'm constantly checking my breast again. It's a fear.
And it's not just the fear, it's the neuropathy. I have lymphedema. I have, there's certain foods I still can't eat. The taste of them is still like, isn't there fully, or it'll bring back a memory of being in treatment. There's other parts to it that has nothing to do with the fear. It's just like another like, oh, I'm still here haunting you. Like, that's how I feel. Like, it's just another additive that is quite frankly bullshit, because cancer takes enough from us. To take those other things on top of it is just sometimes too much.
I feel like I've learned so much, and I think that a lot of good has come from my experience with cancer. I can be more compassionate. Is that a word? Compassionate, right?
Yeah.
Compassionate. Why does it sound weird?
I don't
In
know.
my chemo brain? Oh my goodness. Chemo brain is an issue too.
You just it up, because I had a great intro to that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Talk about chemo brain.
Wait, what was I going to say?
Chemo brain.
Yes, I was going to talk about chemo brain. Thank you for saying that, because it's a real thing.
It totally is a real thing.
I will say that I actually call it cancer brain, because I really believe that even if you didn't have chemo, maybe you had radiation, your brain is definitely changed going through it, because hearing the words "I had cancer" changes your whole perspective and your thinking process. it really truly does. And your treatment, yes, it does affect it, especially chemotherapy, but radiation does too, because it is, emotionally draining, not just physically draining, but it does drain you emotionally. And if you're fatigued and tired, that affects your brain power. So I would love to see that word be changed a little bit to just cancer brain, because it's just such, and for your loved ones too. They all this is a ripple effect on so many people. But chemo brain, cancer brain, whatever you want to call it, ain't no joke. Because when I forget what I'm thinking, I am never getting that back.
Yeah.
It's like your mind goes blank and there is nothing there.
That never happened to me before.
No.
And I started realizing, I'm like, wait a second, why I can't remember these things? I can't I can't speak well anymore.
Yes.
What is going on? I'm not forming sentences. And it's so frustrating.
But it wasn't just that, it was the fog. Like my brain was foggy. It wasn't just that I couldn't think. And also, I know that sometimes people are like, oh, the word's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. But I would use a sentence and the word was completely incorrect, and I'd be like, but that's the word, and I could not, my brain was so foggy I couldn't think of what the word was.
Constantly I'm thinking, I'm like questioning, I'm like, wait, is that proper, is that a real word, is that
my
like
grammar sucks, so anyways. Adding on top of it, not just people who are diagnosed, it's so weird, because when someone comes to me and tells me, actually just happened recently, a friend messaged me and she's like, you're not gonna believe this, I have breast cancer, and my heart broke. Not just because she has cancer, but I know what she's about to go through. And knowing that, you obviously would never tell anybody all the, nitty gritty part of it, but breaks my heart to think of her just starting this process. And then there's, friends that we've lost. I just lost a friend last week, and,
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Seeing his picture come up on Facebook, on the internet, that's how we find out about these things now. I knew it the minute I kept seeing it in the feed. I couldn't even read anything about it, and it just it just makes you think, why am I here and he's not? Like that part of it has been really hard for me. I found myself in the beginning of my diagnosis intertwined in the metastatic community. For those who do not know, metastatic is when your cancer travels outside of the original spot to other organs. I found myself inundated in that community because I wanted to be their voice so badly, because they need it. They need support. And watching people die after another has been hard, really hard.
And then on top of that, you get that, the survivor skill.
100%. Like, why am I here? How did I pull that card and they didn't? And you can't just remove that part of it, because it's not our fault. Like, it's our body makeup. It's how it progressed inside of us, diagnosis, all of that. But the guilt is powerful and can really add some severe depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Because also when you see all those people dying, you start thinking, crap, am I going to be next? That's a lot to take in. And I think a big component to all of this is, when we talk about the after effects, is we all need therapy after this. Were you ever?
No.
This is like a huge problem for me.
It probably would have been helpful, but I actually didn't. But I think that my outlet was probably continuing to help with I had cancer.
Oh, for sure.
And that was reading people's stories, sharing people's stories, making connections. So I think that was probably my therapy. And I was very lucky in the sense that I continued to work, and I haven't stopped, and that consumes, when you mentioned that when you take like that one little bit of time to just not think about cancer. Well, when I'm working, I'm so busy, I'm not thinking about it. Once I stop, and then I'm just kind of laying around and just letting myself feel my body, that's when I start thinking, like, oh wait, I felt something. That was that, and so that's when the fear kind of comes in, and so I have to try to focus back on work, or focus on a trip, or focus on something to keep my mind from going that way.
Right, you reframe your thinking a little bit, and it is important to have outlets like that. I mean, I had cancer has been great. Stupid on breast cancer has 100% been my outlet, because there is therapy in hearing other people's stories, because you realize you're not alone. And that is huge, because even though you know other people get cancer, you still feel like it's happening to you. And when you're in it, and even afterwards, you feel like no one else can be thinking this. But when you put it out there, the different things that you're going through, you realize that other people are feeling the exact same thing. Now, for me, it was a little different, because before my diagnosis, as I've said before, I hospitalized myself the year before, because I had severe depression and was falling into a very dark place. And so I had depression and anxiety and suicidal ideations in my medical dossier, so to speak. And no one recommended that I go see a therapist after this. And that, to me, is a huge flaw in our system, massive flaw. And I'm not the only one. I know other people have done this. And with all the emotional and mental challenges that you go through cancer, no matter what your cancer is, you should talk to someone, even if it is just for a blip, just for a check-in to see how you're doing. It would have made such a difference in my whole process. It really would have. But no one asked.
Yeah. I had really great support. So people were constantly checking on me, but not in the way where it's annoying. It was just more of like as if they would check on me, normally.
Right.
And so that really did help. That's, when you were diagnosed, when I was diagnosed, it was a few years ago, and people are talking about, mental health and well-being a lot more now. And there's so many different apps available too that makes talking to a therapist so much easier, where you don't need, you can stay at home and talk to someone. So whoever has any kind of those fears, there's so many avenues that you can take that keep you where you are without having to go out.
But I think part of it is that people don't realize that they should be doing that. That's the problem. Is, yes, you're right, people are talking about it more, but people don't equate an illness to getting help afterwards. We haven't gotten that far yet in our society, and that is a huge issue. We're all intertwined by mental health. It doesn't matter what your cancer diagnosis is, and your caregivers are intertwined there, because as a caregiver, you have mental health challenges just taking care of that person, because you're struggling to put them through it. We need more around that, and that is why I had cancer is important, because your doctor never told you to go to therapy, but joining a community like that is a great way to find your people, and I think it's so funny how incredibly different we are, because while my family was great about checking on me, I'm the one that checks on everybody else, so they didn't know what the to do when I was diagnosed. Like, who's gonna cook? Who's gonna do this? Oh my God, she can't do that. Like, so that was really hard for me to adjust. Like, I can't make Sunday dinner, people. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Someone else is gonna have to cook it. I can't go shopping for everybody. And I had guilt around that, like not being able to do those things. That is, it's just so funny that we're so different. And my family was great. I'm sure I'm going to get hate mail now that they're all, going to watch this and say, wait, we made you food. It just was, it's hard when you're the person that usually takes care of everybody.
Right.
To now you need taken care of. And I'm very good about, asking for help and stuff in that way. So I just wish that we could address these after effect issues in a different light. And, I know that our doctors and nurses may not want to tell us everything right in the beginning, and I totally understand it's scary, but being more educated about the different things that can happen to you, survivor's guilt, not being able to look at your scars, the emotional stress of it all, financial stress, those are all part of the after effects. We need to address those more, for sure.
You brought up scars, which we really didn't mention much, but that's a big one, because I have a very small scar that remains from my port, and I do have a scar from my lumpectomy, and even I had a few lymph nodes removed from underneath my armpit. So that area, it's not heavily scarred, but it's different. And when I look at the two, there's a dent in there. But I can live with it. It doesn't really affect me as much. I mean, this is a constant reminder of what I went through. Mm-hmm. You have a lot more.
I am like a freaking rag doll. Straight up.
A cute rag doll.
Oh, you're so sweet. The scars were hard for me. They were really, really hard. Struggling for a long time with my self-body image to begin with. Being at a place where I had pulled myself up both physically and mentally, and being a good, healthy weight and being physically fit, and then getting cancer and having my breasts amputated, and then that implants failed, and then having to have another surgery. I have scarring all over, and I burned quite severely from radiation, and that affected skin coloring. And I'll be completely honest, and I've said this before, it took me a really long time to look at myself in the mirror. Like, I could not do it, and I could not wear certain outfits if my scar, and if I have a tank top on, you can see it. If I have a bikini on, you can see it. It took me a long time to be able to wear those things and let them show. And I remember one time I had a tank top on, and my son said, "Mom, you can see all your scars on the side." And I thought he was embarrassed by it. I was like, "Sorry, dude, this is what I got on." He's like, "Oh, I don't care. I just wanted you to know it because I know sometimes they make you uncomfortable." And it just, like, it kind of broke my heart in a couple different ways. And it actually was a little bit of my turning point, because it didn't bother him. Why was it bothering me? And he didn't care. Why do I care? And you're right. Like, it's there to tell you the things you've gone through and how strong you are because of those things. They shouldn't be a reminder of such pain, which they are. I understand that, but they should be an empowerment more than anything. And I want people watching to know that if it doesn't happen for you today or tomorrow, it's okay. Like, that can take you a long time to get through and to understand.
Yeah. I before we kind of end, one of the hardest part, and you can also jump in, but one of the hardest parts, I think, and this is going to be for everyone really, is that you have to remember that you're not going to be the same person that you were before cancer. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be worse off or anything. It's the new you. It's the new normal. And finding who you are and what works for you now, where your tolerance levels are. You're probably less willing to, more willing to forgive certain things, less willing to care about others, or other, like, minimal things is what I mean. But, I kind of, like, I feel like that's kind of a hard part. And then, like, eventually you kind of realize, because you look at pictures of post-cancer, sorry, not post-cancer, but before cancer, and you look at yourself and you're like, wow, this person was this and this person was that. And now you look at yourself and you're like, oh, this is a completely different person, but not in a bad way either. It's like, wow, she didn't know what she was going to go through. And she's so strong, and she's helping so many people. She's clearly talking about me. Absolutely. I had the picture of you right here.
I just messing with you. You are 100% right. I think the after effects, that is the hardest part. It's not just, you said realize. It's not just realizing it, it's accepting. You have to accept that you are changed physically, mentally, emotionally. Your family dynamic probably changed. It changed people that love you and care about you. And it doesn't have to be for the bad. I mean, you should get rid of the toxicity that came into any of that situation. But you have to accept it. And you have to accept the new normal. This is our new normal.
What's yours?